Good shout.
Alrighty, let me pass you the link. But otherwise,
No, I'll do it in a minute or so. It doesn't have to be immediate.
Alrighty, cool. Well, gentlemen, we are looking like we're live. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Awesome. So, welcome anyone who has joined already. Welcome, Hash Nation. I have a couple of awesome gentlemen from the Crypto Authority podcast here to talk about crypto in general, but also more specifically the Ethereum Constantinople hard fork and all the drama that's ensued with that. Just kind of fill you guys into what you need to know, and yeah, overall, hopefully learn a lot along the way. So with that, would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. I'll go for it first. So hey guys, I'm Felix. I'm one of the team members at Crypto Authority, and yeah, I'm calling from Spain, from the south of sunny Spain. I just graduated university in England, and yeah, thankfully life has gone the right way, and I've been able to move to the south of Spain, which is well, yeah, much better quality of life than back in the UK. But yeah, I'm excited. We're going to speak about Constantinople, and kind of like a teach and learn, kind of like a classroom. Yeah. So kind of that sort of, yeah.
You haven't left the UK and you're already hating it, man. Like, seriously? Hi guys, my name's Thomas, the other founder of the Crypto Authority. I'm currently in London, loving it, freezing over here.
Yeah.
I finished my undergrad in law and now I'm doing a master's in corporate law and enjoying the crypto life.
Right on, right on. Yeah, and if you guys haven't checked out the Crypto Authority podcast, definitely worth a listen. Awesome stuff. So with that, guys, I wanted to let you know, anyone who is watching, you can drop questions in the chat on the side there, and we will get to those, you know, along the way, but also at the end, we'll leave some time to answer questions specifically. So with that, guys, let's jump into Constantinople. For those of you that may not know, the Constantinople hard fork that was scheduled for January 16th, 2019, just recently, to bring some updates to the Ethereum virtual machine and introduce the block reward reduction from 3 to 2, was delayed at the last second. And by last second, I mean the very last second, because there was a problem that was found, or more a potential problem, with the updates to the gas prices in virtual machine as it relates to smart contracts. So for those of you who are familiar with the Dow Hack overall, the same problem that happened there, which is called reentrancy, where a hacker or a malicious contract can go in and recursively or iteratively cycle through a contract and take all of the money or all the ether within that contract. That same concept was what they feared Constantinople would allow if they did not go and patch those potential vulnerabilities. So that said, Felix, Thomas, what are you guys' thoughts on this whole Constantinople business?
Well, I'll kick it off. Actually, we'll start with the cool one, why we're doing this call. So from what I've read thus far, it's my understanding that Constantinople, what it eventually is going to bring is actually not that many improvements to the end consumer, but rather to developers and the people working behind the scenes on the project. So that's why I thought your opinion, and for us to again speak here would be fantastic, because yeah, you're an Ethereum dev. So
right on.
So yeah,
right on.
There's it's meaningful. But my general thoughts around Constantinople, and you raised this as well, is I've read in a few different places that it was supposed to be quite an easy transition, or it wasn't supposed to be something delayed. They'd already taken their time on it, and now it's been delayed until late February. I think it's February the 27th.
Correct, yes.
And again, this is just Ethereum not living up to their white paper as such, to their goal and their roadmap. They're delaying it further, and at the same time, Tron and EOS and all these other smart contract systems, they're all growing at tremendous paces, and their DApp users are vastly superior than that of Ethereum's, and it's a big blow for Ethereum, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime that you have, you know, something that's highly publicized like Constantinople, and then, it gets pulled at the very last second, a lot of questions start to swirl around, and that happened a lot on on Twitter. Everybody who's on crypto Twitter knows how crazy it gets there, but there was a lot of people freaking out there saying, Ethereum's done, this is it. And I wouldn't take it that far. I would not sit here and say that this problem that they found and the reaction to it was all that wrong. I actually, after I took a minute to think about what happened and got a chance to read up a little bit more on this potential vulnerability, I thought that, what, I'm actually glad that they pulled the plug, because the last thing that Ethereum needs in terms of stunting its growth further is for them to push an update that's not ready, let it happen, and then basically it was a trapdoor for developers, because those of us who have contracts on the blockchain already, or those of us who are building things, would then have probably found out the hard way that the new methodologies within the Ethereum virtual machine, the new gas prices, and default gas prices, would have potentially opened us up to something seriously negative for our smart contracts. So better to pull it back and put something in production that is really going to work and be less of a pitfall for developers. I'm more stoked.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the reality is and there's a comment in here by Trade Feeds that Vlad, and I think you're referring to Vlad Zamfir, leaving the Ethereum fray here. If that's the case, I didn't really know. I had a little exchange with him on Twitter the other day, and he said, I'm not a developer, but we're working on proof of stake. So we'll see. If Vlad Zamfir, Vitalik Buterin, etc., people start abandoning Ethereum from a leadership perspective, then that's definitely cause for concern.
Forrest, can I just take it back a step?
Yeah.
I'm not as knowledgeable as you guys are. I'm your average crypto fan, crypto enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
As a developer,
right?
Back to Constantinople, are these going to make it easier for you? Are these just for developers? Because we've covered the fact that it's not going to affect the average user that much. But in terms of a developer's perspective, if I'm not a developer, is this hard fork going to help me, as in enable me to get and become a developer on the Ethereum network more easily? Or is this something that's only for existing Ethereum developers? It's really technical. What's your take on it?
Sure, yeah. So
hang on, Forrest.
Go ahead.
Just before you get into this, I think this is a perfect opportunity of let's go through the EIPs and address what they do and who they address. So kick it off.
For sure. So bear with me, because I used to, when I first did the video for Constantinople, I had the EIP numbers memorized. Now I forget them, so that's my mistake. But 3 of the 4 Ethereum improvement proposals, and that's what an EIP is for those of you who may not know, 3 of those 4 were improvements to the Ethereum virtual machine. And the Ethereum virtual machine, basically from a developer's perspective, is what takes the smart contracts that you write, that code that you see, and it breaks it down into a lower level machine, like coding language that the computer can understand. And so that's where you hear like bytecode and opcode and all this other stuff. That's all handled by the Ethereum virtual machine. And that's what tells the smart contract, or that's what translates the smart contract code to functions that happen on the blockchain. Now, the improvements that were made were a lot of times related to gas. And then I think, again, a really brief primer on gas. It's just that within the Ethereum ecosystem, because it's distributed, because it's decentralized, or mostly, the idea is that if someone could freely use the resources of the network without having to pay for cost, then what would stop someone from running really taxing and expensive computer programs on Ethereum without having to pay anything, right? And that would overwhelm the network. So the idea of gas came into the fray. Like every time if you're a developer, if you want to run a certain function on the Ethereum blockchain, you're gonna have to pay your way. And so gas is a way that they measure how much ether you're gonna spend to run compute operations on the blockchain through the virtual machine. Now, one of the things that I think most developers would say is that when you're trying to create smart contracts that store data or manipulate data or move data within contracts. So if you're trying to store something in memory, or if you're trying to store something in an array, which is like a little mini database, it's very expensive in gas to do that. So they wanted to say, okay, let's make it cheaper for developers and more efficient for developers to do different things with smart contracts. That was the main idea. And then beyond that, to just make it overall more efficient for the virtual machine to do its job. So that's what 3 of those improvement proposals were all about. And the problem is that because this is such a complex economic environment, those changes that they made to the way gas is facilitated and all the gas costs, etc., there's an intricacy about how gas interacts with smart contracts. And so if developers aren't careful and they maybe set up a function that costs too much gas, it's not going to work. And conversely, if they set up a function and they're not considering gas at all that it would cost for someone to interact with that contract, they could run into other problems. So it's really important for these updates to the virtual machine to be communicated and also thought about through the lens of a smart contract developer. And I see Andrew Parmenter, actually a guy that I work with. Welcome, man. He said gas is super frustrating. It is super frustrating. As a developer, it's one extra thing to think about, and it's something that can make or break your app at the end of the day. So that was 3 of those proposals, were that virtual machine thing. And that is really ultimately what caused the fork to fail, if you can call it that. They pulled the plug because they realized it's not worth putting this out if there are going to be potential issues. And that's not to say that there were absolutely going to be issues, because I think when the news first broke, people were like, this is the end of the world. They found a bug. How did they not catch this? The reality is that there wasn't a bug in the actual code that they wrote for the improvement proposals. It was just that they found that these updates created a new vulnerability in the smart contract engine that wasn't there before because of the economics of gas. So it's very interesting because this wasn't a failure from the perspective of testing your code in an isolated sense. It was an integration failure. What do you guys think about that?
Well, as someone not as knowledgeable in with the Ethereum smart network,
it's not that you're not knowledgeable. Don't be so harsh on yourself. It's because you're not technical.
Sorry, let's go with it. Thank you, Felix. You're very kind, always protecting me. Always don't want to hurt my feelings.
That's true, partner.
Not technical. When I heard that this was the case, I actually thought it was regarding a bug. I didn't realize, and I think that's one of the major misconceptions that most people have, and it's one of the comments you're going to get on Reddit, and it's going to lead to arguments. Oh, it's a bug. No, it's a vulnerability, and it just leads to this. And I think one of the issues in general in the cryptocurrency space is misinformation in general. Me and Felix were arguing about this, about something else. Felix was right, I was wrong. But again, it was due to misinformation.
Yes, and overreaction a lot of times.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, I was definitely, and if for those of you who've seen that video that I created about the Constantinople hard fork before it was due to hit the blockchain or become adopted, you remember I said like this hard fork should be non-contentious. It shouldn't be, it's not expected to be some sort of highly volatile situation. But at the end of the day, at the very last second, I forget the name of the research firm, but they found a potential problem between smart contracts and the virtual machine that could become a trapdoor for developers and open up their contracts, both existing and new, to potential hacking. And that's obviously something that's more damaging to the Ethereum network long term than pulling the hard fork and trying it again. So from that perspective, since this update changes something really core to Ethereum, I'm not opposed to them pulling the plug and taking their time to fix it, because it makes developers' lives easier. But in terms of the end user, this does have effects, because the more efficient it is for smart contracts to be written and for functions to be, instantiated and executed on the blockchain, those sorts of things, those smart contracts are what the end users are interacting with. So if those are secure and those are efficient and developers have more freedom to build cool things, then the end users are directly impacted, because you get more efficient, more secure, and hopefully better dApps at the end of the day. So these updates are, at a really like a low level, like in the machine, in the overall system. But at the end of the day, that does trickle down to the end users, no matter what happens. That's the hope.
Correct
So
me.
I haven't read it. Yeah, go for it, Thomas.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the EIPs is taking down Ethereum rewards from 3 ETH to 2 ETH. What's your view on that as a developer, Forrest?
Yeah, and I've said this before too. As a developer, my opinions are different than they would be if I were a miner. And I've actually, you know, just throughout like releasing videos and talking to people on Reddit, etc., there are like there's a big split between miners. There are some that are like, I just love Ethereum, I mine because I want to contribute. And then there are others who are like, I mine for profit and I hate Ethereum for this, right? So it's like, even then, even in the mining community, it's not consistent. For me, I think dropping from 3 to 2 is only smart if they're actually going to deliver on proof of stake by the end of 2019 or sooner, hopefully, or maybe no later than early 2020. Because if you drop that token price down and you lower the reward, and miners are still expending an extreme amount of energy and revenue to mine on Ethereum, and they're going to be taking a loss, eventually miners are there's going to be a mass exodus of miners, even if inflation goes down. Because that's the idea, is that you're dropping inflation, so every time a block is mined, only 2 are created rather than 3. So you're dropping inflation by a third. But there are a lot of other factors that affect price, and if token price doesn't go up equivalent to that, then they're not going to make any money. They're not going to be happy.
We said that this hard fork isn't really affecting the end user, but in that sense, it will lead to it affecting the end user, because won't that affect the fees? And if less miners are mining, it's going to cost you more as a user to use the Ethereum network.
Well,
would that be something?
Potentially. I mean, look, I think the bottom line is that when you're a miner in Ethereum, you're either on one or the other of those two camps. You're in the I love Ethereum and I'm going to be a part of this community and I want to make Ethereum better, or you're a miner for profit, and there's very little in between. I think as a developer, I'm more indifferent to this change because it doesn't affect me as directly. However, sorry, go ahead.
But what about the, I'm now trying to shift it over to the end user, which is mostly our listeners. How would you say this affects the end user? Does it not matter? Because the way from where I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, lowering the rewards for the miners as you said, might lead to less miners mining Ethereum, which will lead to higher fees for users. Am I understanding that right?
Again, potentially. It's not a guarantee that it will eventually, because the network adjusts. I think the bigger risk is that if this change happens, a bunch of miners then leave Ethereum, right? That does affect the network because you just have a lower overall hash rate. You have less participation, which sucks, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys saw what happened with Ethereum Classic. People just kind of gave up on it. And so I'm not really surprised that it was 51% attack, because it wasn't very costly for someone to overwhelm the network based on the number of miners that were left. Yeah. And that obviously is that's a ways away for Ethereum. It would take a catastrophic event for that to happen. But if miners leave in mass, it's possible. And at this point, Ethereum could not afford to have any sort of hack or other catastrophic event. For that matter. So as an end user, you could see lower fees. You could also have less belief in the platform overall, potential for a 51% attack in the worst case. Day to day, it's not as much of an impact, in my opinion.
I've got a question now.
Go for it.
Yeah, well, I've got a question now, Forrest. So obviously, the fact that they've had to delay Constantinople further, it's not good news for Ethereum, and it gives it a bad reputation. But two things. Firstly, God, which order do I ask them in? Okay, we'll go for the short one first. Do you know, because I haven't read anything, do you know if they've been able to patch the vulnerabilities and if the problem is solved? Or if they plan to do so by February the 20th? I think it was February the 27th, the forecasted date that Constantinople will activate.
Yeah, so maybe for those of you who are joining late, you're not aware, there was a vulnerability or potential vulnerability found in the Constantinople hard fork. And the reality is that it's not a bug in the code for the hard fork itself. It's rather a potential vulnerability in smart contracts as a result of the changes to the Ethereum virtual machine. So for those of you familiar with the Dow Hack, a concept in computer science called reentrancy, where, for example, if you have a contract that has a withdraw function, and the withdraw function says, the person who has coins in here that's sending a transaction to me, I'm going to give them the tokens that they want back, and then after that, I'm going to lower their balance to zero, right? What happens is that because of gas prices and because of the way that those affect how contracts interact with each other, when the gas prices were reduced so drastically with these new updates in Constantinople, the potential for smart contracts to be vulnerable to reentrancy kind of reared its ugly head again since the Dow Hack. And so the danger, and the real danger, is that it could have enabled old contracts that already existed, that were already working on mainnet, to suddenly have vulnerability to reentrancy where all the coins stored in that contract could be stolen. And so obviously people were saying it's not worth pushing this out because we don't know for sure if contracts are going to be vulnerable, but we're not going to take the chance. So I think they are working on it, but it's not an easy problem to solve because it's affected by multiple different things. You know, you're going to have to make sure that you don't introduce a change that could break everyone's dApps because they're going to be pissed. You know, I would be upset if I had something running on the Ethereum blockchain, they push an update and it's completely broken. So they have a set of constraints that they've got to work in, and I think they have an idea of how they're going to solve it, but it may take longer than until the end of February. That's just my opinion.
Okay, so tying it into that thought that you just said, or the opinion that you just admitted to having, that you'd be pissed off. As a developer, are you pissed off, or how pissed off are you? God, what a dreadful way to put it, but how dissatisfied are you with the fact that they've delayed it? And do you think other Ethereum developers are going to be more annoyed than you? And will they consider swapping to other blockchains? Is that really the case? Because thankfully, it hasn't been as bad as the Dow attacks back in, when was that, 2015?
Yeah,
it hasn't been that catastrophic. If something that detrimental happened to Ethereum now, I could see the Tron and the EOS blockchains growing a lot in popularity. So
yeah,
do you think Ethereum's vulnerable here?
Yeah, I think it is. And look, it sucks because, you know, I tell everyone that's in this space, like, no platform has won yet. There is no platform out there that's unbeatable. Ethereum has been long due for like significant updates. You know, you have, you know, Cardano, you have Tron, you know, you have even EOS, which I have a video coming out soon about. They've brought proof of stake. Neo, I mean, there are tons of them that are trying to take market share. And I don't mean market cap. It's not even about token price for me. It's about how can people build stuff that matters and that works in real life for people, like end users, to use. Those platforms are starting to deliver what they promised in white papers that came out a while ago. So Ethereum needs to, really, they just need to deliver on proof of stake. They need to deliver sharding. They need to differentiate themselves in some way from the competition, now that the competition is really coming after them and delivering.
I think now it's sorry, Thomas, let me just cut you off here now. I think a tweet that I made earlier today was a table comparing different blockchains, the most active ones by users and such. And let me just read you a few of the stats. So the number of transactions on the Ethereum blockchain in 2018 was roughly 21 million ETH transactions.
Right.
On the EOS blockchain, it was 107 million. So that's 5 times more. On the Steam blockchain, so that's the native network to Steam it, the social media page, they hosted 52 million. That's more than double than Ethereum. And then Tron, another one that's brand new that was released in 2018, just last year, 98 million. So
Right.
if it's just incredible seeing, and if you go on DApp Radar and those sort of websites comparing the amount of users and the volume that each blockchain is receiving,
Right.
the numbers that Ethereum is performing is vastly inferior rather than their competitors.
Yeah.
Or some of them.
And it comes down to how many transactions can get mined at a time. I mean, it's a pretty fixed calculation. You know, you have consensus being reached much faster on other blockchain networks, and you know, larger blocks being mined at the same time. You could have massive amounts of volume differences allowed in a 365-day period.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it just brings more and more attention every year that goes by to Ethereum's need to innovate and not rest on its laurels as a well-established large community, because developers, their skills port over to lots of different platforms, lots of them.
This kind of reminds me of I don't know if you guys remember this period. It was around 2007, 2008, where we had BlackBerry going into the market with new phones, and everyone was like, BlackBerry, BlackBerry, BlackBerry. And then Apple comes along. It was there. It's still there. Samsung came in, but BlackBerry failed to innovate, failed to improve, and they just remained behind. And now where's BlackBerry? It kind of feels like the same thing's happening with Ethereum unless they can up the game, innovate, and beat the competition.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know, there are some folks in the chat here. TradeFeed says Casper seems, you know, unattainable for Ethereum. And at this point,
absolutely.
And at this point it does, because there's been very little update to what's going on. And I think that we've now reached this point where making updates to the protocol are so complicated and so difficult because of the size of the community and all these different brains out there saying, no, I want this, or I want this, this is better, this is better. And then you have to think about miners, you have to think about end users. It's really difficult to do anything with Ethereum from a protocol perspective. And I think that's hurting them as well, because if they wanted to make an update that would break a bunch of contracts but make the network way better, developers would freak out. You know I want Ethereum to be successful, but I'd be annoyed. You know, if you have miners, you have this difficulty bomb, you drop the mining reward, even with the promise of proof of stake. If you don't deliver, they're going to get mad and they're going to roll out, and then you're stuck. So it's a difficult place to be in, and I don't envy Vitalik and all the rest of the core team over there in the Ethereum camp, because this is not an easy problem to solve. But yeah,
absolutely. I didn't catch the name of the guy in the comments, but I'm exactly the same. Just Casper seems so far away now.
Yeah, it does.
It just seems though that one of the problems with cryptocurrencies in general, and with the decentralized aspect of it, like if you take a look at less decentralized cryptocurrencies like say XRP or Ripple, they're not facing as many of these problems because they don't need to have that community to agree and to say, oh yes, we could go for this, or no, half of them are going to leave. It's an inherent problem that they got to solve, and it just comes with being in the crypto space.
Yeah, well, and it's a hard thing because we talk about in this space a lot. We talk about decentralization and the goal being complete decentralization. But with decentralization comes an element of slower innovation, in my opinion, because you don't have someone saying, no, I'm authoritatively deciding that we need to do this, even if not everyone agrees. Sometimes complete decentralization can slow things down, and that's not a bad thing, but I think we need to keep expectations in check, especially now in this space, because no one has fully solved the problem of decentralized consensus. Not yet. We're still at this point where there's like clashing goals of decentralization and like high throughput. And someone in the comments said that, Toby Styles, shout out to you, you nailed it. It's how difficult it's become to make something decentralized and fast and efficient and cheap. It's really difficult to do.
But if you think about it, we're only in the first few years of this decentralized mission, or this decentralized environment where new apps and new types of applications and programs are being built on a decentralized network.
Yeah.
So obviously it's going to take time for the infrastructure and even for the developers. Like, I'm not a developer myself, but I imagine this stuff, a lot of what you do for us is it's like uncharted territory that you haven't been in, and then you've got to kind of make it up and learn on the go, because you can't like, you don't have a professor that studied this 30 years ago that can teach you this. It's all brand new. And there was another point that you made there that interests me. You said the fact that, or the idea that maybe because we're decentralizing all of the power and the authority, pun the pun, behind these projects, it's going to stifle innovation. But then at the same time, the fact that stuff like Bitcoin's open source, that's fantastic. And it's, I know we're going a bit off topic here, but if I'm to compare Bitcoin to a currency, the fact that Bitcoin invites developers to come to improve the protocol, to make it better. You want to improve it? Yeah, come over here, make it better, create the Lightning Network, create solutions like that.
Yeah.
It does encourage innovation at the same time.
Oh, it does. I agree. I think, I should have stopped short of saying it sort of disincentivizes innovation. I think people want to innovate. I think it's very hard to implement and adopt those innovations, because then you have everyone disagrees on the path forward. And I'm not saying we need dictators, because obviously that is completely not the case. We don't even need big authorities. People come and question the figure that Vitalik holds in Ethereum. Is he the dictator of Ethereum? Sometimes, yeah, because people look to him to answer the questions about Ethereum and what it's doing, what's going to happen. If you really think about it, human beings naturally are drawn to centralization, if you think about it, because when things are good and everything's running the way it's supposed to, decentralization, in decentralized systems, people are like, all right, yeah, I'm pumped about this. Like, let's decentralize everything. But then when something really bad happens and no one knows what to do, they look to someone else or to an authority to try and fix it, right? The Dow Hack's a perfect example of that. It's something bad happened because of, lack of foresight on how a smart contract could be used, and developers didn't really think about the consequences, right? And then, tons and tons and tons of Ether is stolen, and then they look to Vitalik like, hey, this decentralization thing was cool, but now my money's gone, so I need you to fix it. So we have to find a way to also change our expectations about how these things are run, and realize that to get to that perfect solution, and there might not even be one, but to get to as close to perfect as we can, we have to also change the way that we interact with technology and the way that we expect things to be done, in a way.
Well, here's another question, and it requires no intelligence at all, and it's just kind of a fun question. But do either of you two think that Satoshi one day could come out and save and be kind of the hero as such for the Bitcoin network if it ever suffers a catastrophic attack? If he's still alive, or if he, she, or them, whomever Satoshi is.
It's quite difficult at this point, even if they do come out, to prove that, hey, yeah, I am Satoshi at this point.
Yeah, it is hard. And do we even need? I think that a hero coming forward and saying I can fix it runs counter to the whole concept of what Bitcoin is all about. And that's what I think is so fascinating about this. And I know we're getting off the topic of Ethereum a little bit here. But Satoshi, I think strategically, whomever they were or whomever it was, basically made it clear that the whole point of Bitcoin is that it doesn't need a figurehead. That this is going to be created and I'm going to lose control of it because I don't want to have control. So I think strategically, as soon as people started, I did some research about this, and at the point when Satoshi kind of stopped interacting with people is when they looked to Satoshi to guide the network forward and asking, hey, what should we do? How do we fix this? It's not up to me, Satoshi. It's up to all of you to figure out. So I think it's very interesting when you think about that from a messaging perspective. There's no other platform out there that's just come out of thin air, has no real clear leadership, and Bitcoin has, I mean, there's some organization there. Like the core developer team obviously is there, but they don't have singular say.
Yeah, well, I wrote an article a few months ago, and it was assessing. It's on our Medium if anyone wants to catch it out. Intelligent plug there, or convenient plug rather.
Yeah.
But it was kind of analyzing how decentralized Bitcoin actually is and how influential certain parties are. So we looked at the mining companies and stuff like that. But for sure.
See, Bitcoin's what Satoshi envisioned and what it's going for is great. Mm-hmm. What I admire with Ethereum though is how, getting back to the topic, is they're having difficulty agreeing to what they're doing, but at least it hasn't gone down the route of Bitcoin, where you've got Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diamond,
forks,
all these different hard forks, because people have disagreed, and yet the community as a whole has really stuck behind Bitcoin, and really, other than Bitcoin Cash, has really just ignored the other ones at this point. So at least Ethereum's trying to stick together and trying to find a solution as a group. And I think what they've done now with holding back and waiting and trying to solve the vulnerability is the best move forward. Unlike some other companies, for example, again, going back into the phone business, looking at Apple when they had the bendy phones, and everyone at Samsung was just making fun of them, or Samsung with their blow-up phones. Like, if they weren't the big companies that they were, people would have just fled. If the same thing happens with the Ethereum network, people could leave because there's nothing to guarantee them that the security is going to be back. So it's like there's a sense of security in the network right now, and once it's gone, I feel like it's hard to gain it back because there's no authoritative figure.
I hear you on that. Agreed. I mean, when things go wrong, people want an authority to tell them things are going to be fine. Here's what we're going to do to remediate the situation. This is what you can expect, right? And that's just the reality. That's what people like. And in the chat, we have people saying, we are Satoshi, and that I think is the goal. Like that is the idea.
Craig Wright is Satoshi. Don't let them tell you otherwise.
God, man, I would say he is. Craig Wright, interesting guy. That's being nice about it. So does anyone have any questions in the chat? Please drop them in. I think
even if it's about this lovely hat I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Okay, so just no, I have to clarify this just for all the listeners. So, Thomas, you can do the honors actually.
So, guys, all of those that are now hating me because this is XRP, it is not. It is ILF. It is a company, I believe it's on smart contracts yet again. And this hat was given to us by the Crypto Collection. They sponsored a couple of podcasts for us, and they gave us this amazing hat, and I just can't take it off.
Nice. Is there a website where you can get the hat? I have Sound Dr. Genie in the chat asking where he can get one.
It's thecryptocollection.co, and if you're in Canada and the US, you get free or shipping on all your orders.
Awesome. And I can't resist this, guys. I'm sorry. We're going to give a shout out to Crypto Movement. He's in the chat. Him and I partnered to create some merch. You've got the Hashoshi hoodies, you've got hats, and all sorts of other jazz. I've been wearing it in all my videos and pretty much everywhere else. So if you're interested in picking up a hat, check out the cryptocollection.co and crypto-movement.com.
Just for all the listeners out there, before we actually went live, I said to Hashoshi, is your name actually hidden? Hashoshi, do you reveal it to your listeners?
I do, because I want them to know I'm a real person and I'm not lying.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well then, Forrest, I said to you before we went live, I was like, dude, I love your jumper. It looks really well made. And the thing that I picked up on, the thing that I like most is the font. Hashoshi is the same font you use on your videos, and then you showed me the hat, and dude,
branding, man.
You're killing it. It looks cool.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat I want you guys to weigh in on. What should be done about the vast number of scam projects in the crypto space? I think it's a really good question. What is our responsibility as influencers or influencers? Because I don't want to be arrogant about it. I don't influence anyone.
Okay, so my thoughts. My thoughts. I was speaking to someone on crypto Twitter today about this. So, as someone who has a following or as an audience as such on Twitter, whenever there is or whenever I read a headline about a scam or the New Zealand exchange that went down the other week. Whenever we read something like that, we really want to raise awareness for it, because we have a duty to do so. So we retweet it, and we tweet about it, we talk about it,
Yep.
and we encourage others to do so. So that, for starters, I think everyone talking about it raises awareness in itself. But then at the same time, it's just, I hate to say it, but there's such stupidity. Like some of these scams on Twitter, they're just so obvious, but just people aren't educated enough, or they're not wise enough. And I'm not blaming them, but they're not wise enough to pick up on it. And that's just due to a lack of education. So again, we've got to raise awareness and just tell people about it so that they are more aware. But that will come with time as well. We're still a very nascent industry, and as we grow over time, people become more accustomed to private keys and the more kind of technical side of crypto that they're confusing and unfortunately jeopardizing their funds with. But lastly, just to end off, I've seen a lot of people, including ourselves, we've tweeted out to Jack, the founder of Twitter. And although this may sound like absolutely insane, tweeting to Jack, the founder of Twitter, he's actually very responsive to things like this. And big figures like Andreas Antonopoulos online on Twitter, they've all atted him and they've told him, we've got too many scammers in crypto Twitter. You've got to do something about the bots. And unfortunately, as of yet, there's been no action or no indication that they want to tackle it. But it's definitely something that that could benefit the community if Twitter itself and individual platforms took action. That could help out, but that is asking a lot.
It's also one of the things that we as crypto influencers in essence need to take care of. Like when we talk about a specific cryptocurrency or a specific project, we really got to make sure that what we're talking about is something we want our audience to go and check out, because there's some influencers out there, I'm not naming anybody, but that talk about something because they got sponsored or something and they didn't do their homework to see, who are these guys, why are they sponsoring me, are they legit? They end up basically shilling a project, and then it all goes haywire and they're like, oh, I didn't know anything about it, I was just getting paid, I got a hat, that kind of thing. So we do have a responsibility to bring up awareness when a project turns out to be a scam, but we also have to be aware and make sure we do our homework to know that it's a scam beforehand and not promote it ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. And an interesting thing here in the chat, Wounded Warrior said, you know, instead of branding it as an influencer, brand yourself as a pioneer. I totally agree with that. Rather than saying I want to influence you, because at least on my channel, my main focus here is to have fun. Obviously, I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from great people like Crypto Authority here that just love the space and want to learn and want to help other people learn. But I also just want to give you the tools to help you make the decision. Rather than me telling you, hey, I think you should buy this, which is financial advice, and I'm not equipped to make that decision because everyone's different. I can tell you what you need to know about it and what my thoughts are, and then you can make your own choice. And I encourage people to be skeptical. Be skeptical of me, be skeptical of Felix, be skeptical of Thomas, because we all have our own experiences, our own thoughts, and at the end of the day, it's your money. It's, you know, your hard work that's on the line here that you used to earn that money. And I would only encourage you to learn as much as you can before you even try and take that leap.
Yeah, it's like what we're doing right now. We're doing product reviews on our website, and we're doing them because people don't know, for example, which hardware wallet to buy, which what's it called, recovery seed protection to buy, like the crypto tag or the crypto steel. So we're doing those reviews. So if people want to check those out, we're giving, it is our opinion end of the day, but at least we're trying to inform them what you can look at. And if you guys have a project that you want, you don't know if it's safe to use or something, bring it up to our attention. We'll try to review it. One of our followers the other week sent us a message saying, can you guys review this? And we've reached out to the company, and any day now I'm waiting for that product to arrive to test it.
Yeah, for sure. And to that point, even if it's not a product, if it's a crypto project, especially early on, you know, you can reach out to some of these companies. A lot of them have PR emails, but if they don't, you can go on their Telegram and just start asking questions. You'll be able to tell a lot about a project, in my opinion, by how the community is in the chat and also how the team behind the project is in the chat. if it's all like marketing speech and it's all like that we're promising this and we're going to be like infinitely scalable tomorrow and, you know, buy our ICO, that's a good indicator that, hey, I need to do some more research about this and see if this is something that I want to participate in and if I want to buy this, right? You know, and none of us, like Felix, Thomas, myself, no other YouTuber out here or Instagrammer, Twitter person are equipped to give you financial advice. And like, I think a lot of people say it, but we aren't financial advisors. We can't give you financial advice, but I think we can give you advice on how to be your own financial advisor. That's ultimately the goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I've got to shoot off in a minute, but just before I go, I'd like to share one of the things that I did when I first got into the space to
Awesome.
to be able to pinpoint these scam or fraudulent projects. If there were ever a time to include a GIF, I would do the BitConnect one now. but a little tip that I used to do is I think we get caught up with the bullishness of the project and how it's going to moon and how it's going to soar in price and be the next Bitcoin. What you've got to do is not seek the positive and the bullish news, but look at the bearish news. So whatever project you're researching and you've read the white paper about, go into Google, type in the name of the project, and then just simply type in scam or fraud and trying to find or weaknesses or limitations or disadvantages. I think that people get too caught up with greed, and that's partially why we grew from 3,000 to 20,000 in 2017. We've got to, if we read more into these projects and better informed ourselves, a lot of the fraudulent activity would have, or a lot of people would have been saved. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to share, my little tip before I go. But yeah, guys, thanks a lot for having me, Forrest. It's been amazing.
For
We're
sure,
definitely going to do this more, man.
Absolutely. I'm probably going to go for another 5 to 10. So Thomas, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, I can take it from here, gentlemen. I appreciate you coming on.
I could have go myself. I'm sorry, Forrest.
Sure, no worries. I'll wrap it up. Thanks for having jumping on. And for those of you in the chat who's watching, definitely check out the Crypto Authority podcast. The link is in the description below. And if you're watching this on replay, same to you. Definitely check these guys out. Thanks, Felix and Thomas, for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for the shout out, man. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you for the shout out and thanks for the love. Keep up the good work and yeah, I love watching your videos, man. Keep it up.
Absolutely, man. Cheers. I will definitely keep on creating content always. All right, guys.
Good stuff. Are we done? Oh, no, we're not. Christ, I've gone premature, haven't I? Brilliant.
Yeah,
fantastic.
You can drop off the Zoom.
Can I what?
You can hit and drop off the Zoom. You can close the Zoom chat.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, Forrest,
goodbye for real this time, man. You're good.
God, man, I'm so sorry.
Dude, you're fine, man.
Catch you later.
You're looking good. Would you look at that, guys? And now it's just us. Yeah, big thank you to you guys for giving a welcome to Felix and Thomas. Felix is a funny guy, eh? Really nice gentlemen, both of them, and they do some great work on their podcast, so definitely check it out. I just wanted to stick around and see if there are any other questions in the community. I'm trying to build up this Hash Nation community as much as I can, get to all your questions as many times as I can. So drop any questions you have in the comments. I do remember up above there was a comment about Plutus and working on Cardano. I have plans to start a project with Plutus on Wednesday of this coming week. So I'll be able to report back some about that coming up real soon. So definitely thank you for that. Yep, David Murati, I got you covered. Plutus coming soon. How to spot fake market caps. That's an interesting one. First thing to do is probably scout the web to see if there are bots that are actively shilling on Twitter or Instagram for a certain token. And I would also say there are a lot of people who like spy out on these on like CoinMarketCap and watch the transaction throughput really in live format. And you can usually see where these like huge massive like upticks in transactions coming through. You can definitely be skeptical that there are some some bots at play, because it happens quite a bit. You'll see the bot traders flowing in and trying to prop up market cap for sure. If you see this huge spikes, a lot of times that is bot activity, in my opinion. Gandhi, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for the awesome words, my friend. Wounded Warrior, awesome. Thank you for joining the live. Scrolling up for other questions if there's yeah, for volume for sure. My mistake. I misread the question. My fault. Sound Dr. Genie. I mean, honestly, fake market caps are difficult because a lot of times they're driven by sometimes large whale investors buying up large amounts of tokens and trying to build up value and try and prove that, hey, we're awesome. Yeah, I would always be skeptical of market cap. I try to keep market cap out of my consideration for overall success of a project, because even small caps can have a really good product. That's best I can do. I'm not as good with the whole the trading and the charts and the technical analysis and that sort of thing. That's not my background, but I'm working on learning more about that. Soulja Boy saying Bitcoin is dead. I actually hadn't heard that, but that's hilarious. I am not going to... Soulja Boy is a beast in the music industry, clearly done pretty well for himself, but I don't know that I would take his opinion to heart on crypto. That's just my first thought. Yeah, it's very true. A lot of people that are new in crypto look at market cap first. They go to CoinMarketCap and look at the top 10. They just drop their money in those. I think that is probably the most myopic way to go about investing in something. Again, not financial advice, just saying do a lot more research than that. Make a short list, pare that down, and then figure out what you can afford to invest. Updates from Tron event. I actually want to do a live stream with our good pal BitBoy to talk about Nitron, because I unfortunately could not attend, but I did hear there was some interesting stuff going on there. I want to do another video about the BitTorrent stuff coming for Tron as well. So that's coming up. Let's see what else here. ADA being supported by Ledger Nano S. I don't think that there's a date on the books right now for that, from what I understand. I know that there's a wallet in progress, and they are probably going to bring that either at launch for the Nano X, or they're going to bring that along within the first update period. I am super hopeful that the Nano X does not have the same update problems that the Nano S had. Do a live stream with Charles Hoskinson. Tweet at him and ask him to do one with me. That would be pretty rad. Crypto and culture. Crypto movement does have some dope stuff, including Hashoshi stuff. Not to promote my stuff. No pressure ever to buy anything that I support, ever. Trezor One does support ADA. Trezor One does do that. I do enjoy the Trezor One. All right. Sorry, guys. Scrolling through the chat, slagging. Donate. Awesome. Yeah, here's the other thing, guys. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a ton more of these Token Talk Tuesdays related to smart contract platforms, because I know that a lot of people have really been enjoying the reviewed by an Ethereum developer series, and I'm really enjoying doing those as well. So if you guys have recommendations, leave those in the chat as well. I'll write them down. I have EOS, Zilliqa, and Neo on the list, but if there are other ones, definitely give that some attention and let me know in the chat. I have built something with Tron. The project that I built is under NDA, unfortunately, so I cannot share what it exactly is, but it was a 2 smart contract solution with a basic front end, very minor thing. If we tried to build anything? Gotcha. Yeah, so to answer the question, Wounded Warrior, I have built on Tron. Interesting experience. Very new to me, not having to deal with gas and having to work with proof of stake environment. Very interesting. What do you think of the Nano X still selling their Genesis block models? They are not selling well. Yeah, to be honest with you, when they released that, I thought it was an interesting move, dropping something of high value. I was laughing at Trezor as well, who released that gray, it's like gray edition Trezor wallet, which is like $700. Like honestly, if you have enough money, laying around in this bear market to blow on a $600 or $700 hardware wallet, good for you. But most people do not. That's just my opinion. Sound Dr. Genie, review Dragonerium. Very interesting. I will definitely check that out. If their code is on GitHub, even better. I love that. So quick question for you guys. Let me know in the chat, what's your favorite hardware wallet? What are you guys using still? Have you gotten the Trezor Model T or Nano S? What are you guys using? And yeah, Komodo is definitely one on my list. I'm working on that as well, for sure. We've got Nano S. Yep, I figured a lot of people have Nano S. Got like a 5-minute little lightning round, guys. I'll try and get to as many things as I can. If you have questions, comments, etc., go ahead and leave those in the chat. Yeah, hardware wallet is definitely a must. Keep as much as you can off of exchange, because obviously you want to have full control over your keys and full control over your crypto. Video for developers who want to transition from web development to blockchain or dApp dev. Absolutely. I actually did it backwards. I started out with blockchain development. I learned smart contracts and I learned Web3, which is the API for Ethereum. And now I'm actually learning more about web development. So very interesting. I have the reverse of that going on, but I would love to share my experience and give some tips. I'm actually creating an online course, or 2 of them right now. One of them is to teach about the fundamentals of blockchain for those who may not understand it yet. That's not probably you guys. You guys know what you're doing. However, I am building another one for technical folks to get you started building dApps on 2 or 3 different platforms. Awesome, guys. Yeah, hardware wallets are a growing industry. There are a lot of them, and it's definitely good now too to have some awareness about potential, scammy or fake seeming hardware wallets, and make sure you're only buying them directly from the company that sells them. So if you buy a Trezor, buy it from Trezor. If you're buying a Ledger of any kind, buy it from Ledger. Just to be better, it's better safe than sorry. Always keep that in mind. What's the best way to learn programming for blockchain, in my opinion? The best way to learn programming for blockchain is to first go online and go to Udemy. That's U-D-E-M-Y. I'm not sponsored. I don't even know if I have. They don't even have an affiliate link. So just go to udemy.com and look up an online course for blockchain development 101. There are a handful of ones that walk you through how to build dApps. I am also going to be releasing a video soon about how to build like the basic Hello World contract. So I will for sure share that, and you guys can get started with blockchain development right there as well. 100 days of code. I'll tell you, I code so much for my full-time job that when I come home and I make these videos, my brain is very tired. But I'm going to start doing some code on screen, or at least on videos. I don't know if I'll code live necessarily, because I like talking too much, so I'd get distracted very easily, but maybe I will. 100 days of code, man, that would be hilarious. Yeah, for those of you who are parents out there, I'm not a parent. I probably will be eventually, but yeah, I don't know how you do it. It's hard enough to have a job and to do this channel and otherwise be healthy. So bless you truly. Come to New York to the Ivan on Tech meetup. Yeah, Ivan is one of the folks that I'd like to to get acquainted with and talk to him a little bit more. I think we have similar interests and somewhat similar channels. So for sure, I'd love to do that. Am I still interested in Elastos? Yes, I am. I started working on a project with Elastos, and that project fell through. It was for a client. So I just need another excuse to start building with it. And I'm also going to wait for the next high impact update, and I will be making a follow-up video about Elastos as well. Definitely, definitely, definitely. All right, guys, we're coming up on the full hour. I am super appreciative of every one of you guys who came out, spent time with me on the live chat. Super kind to Felix and Thomas. And feel free to watch any of my other content if you're new to the channel. Honestly, this is why I do it. I'm so happy to have an awesome community, and a community that teaches me, hopefully, more and more every single time I post a video, because all the comments and things you guys share, super helpful, and you help me learn a lot. So I really owe you guys one on that. So thank you guys so much. I hope you have a fantastic week. Happy MLK Day, and have a good one, guys. Cheers.